Okay, when it comes to fire escape safety, what's the very first thing you think of? I bet for most property owners, it's getting an inspection, right? But today, we're going to talk about the one critical step that so many people miss, the step that comes after the inspection, and that's certification. Believe me, it is so much more than just a piece of paper. It's your absolute proof of compliance.
So let's imagine this for a second. Your fire escape has been inspected, you've got the report in hand, you're all done, right? You've checked that box, and you're totally compliant. Well, not so fast. The answer is a little more complicated than that, and it might actually surprise you. And right here, this is the heart of the problem. There's this really common assumption that once that inspection is done, you can just wash your hands of it. But that way of thinking can lead to some really serious trouble down the line, including having violations that are still active that you might not even know about.
So, this brings us to the first thing we absolutely have to clear up: the huge difference between an inspection and a certification. They are not the same thing, not at all, and knowing why is the key to actually staying compliant.
This slide really lays it out perfectly. Think about it this way. An inspection is like getting a diagnosis from a doctor. It's there to evaluate the condition, look for any problems, and basically create a list of what needs to be fixed. Certification, though, that's the official clean bill of health. It's the formal document that says, yep, this fire escape meets every single requirement, and any violations are now cleared. See the difference? One finds the problems, the other proves you've solved them.
This quote just nails it. It cuts right to the chase. Here's a great way to remember it. An inspection is like taking the exam, but the certification is your passing grade. And you can't get credit for passing the class until you have that final proof in your hands. So, just to be crystal clear, let's look at the official definition. Certification is your formal written proof. It is the document you can hand over to the city, to inspectors, to your insurance company, to prove that you have done your due diligence and that your fire escape is absolutely safe and up to code. Okay, so now we know what certification is, but what actually happens if you don't have it? Let's jump into our next section, because this is where a missing piece of paper can turn into some very real and very serious risks for you as a property owner. First off, the legal and liability risks are just huge. Without that certification, any violation notices you've received, they're still open. They haven't gone away. And even worse, if an accident were to happen, you have no formal record to defend yourself and prove you took all the necessary safety steps. It can also cause major headaches if you're ever trying to sell or refinance the property.
And then, of course, there's the money. Insurance companies can straight up deny or refuse to renew your coverage if you don't have proper certification. And if there is an incident, you might find you can't even support your own claim. Not to mention, failing to get certified almost always means you're delaying necessary repairs. And as any property manager knows, small problems you ignore only turn into bigger, way more expensive problems later on.
So here's the bottom line. When things go wrong, that piece of paper becomes one of the most important things you have. Your certification documentation is literally what stands between you and a world of legal and financial chaos. All right, that's the scary part. But what's the solution? The good news is there is a clear, totally straightforward path to getting your fire escape certified and getting fully compliant. It's not as complicated as you might think. It really just boils down to these 4 steps. First, you get a professional inspection to find any and all issues. Second, if repairs are needed, and this is key, they have to be done to code. This is not about a quick patch-up job. It's about making sure it's structurally sound. Third, a final re-inspection is done to confirm all the work was done correctly. And finally, you get the issuance of that all-important certification document. Now, you might be thinking you can handle some of this yourself, but I have to tell you, this is absolutely not a DIY job. Proper certification requires deep, specialized expertise. You need someone who truly understands structural engineering, who stays up to date on building codes that are constantly changing, who knows the ins and outs of old ironwork, and, this is a big one, who knows exactly what city inspectors are looking for. An unqualified opinion can just lead to failed inspections and even more violations. And all of this leads us to our final section: how to navigate this whole process, and finally get that peace of mind that comes from knowing you are 100% compliant. For something this specialized, you really do need an expert partner. So what you want to look for is a complete end-to-end solution. For instance, a company like Ironwork Restoration handles the entire process from start to finish. They don't just inspect, they do the actual compliance-focused structural repairs, they handle the rust mitigation and painting, and, most importantly, they manage that whole violation clearance process and provide you with the full, formal certification you need. That's the kind of all-in-one solution that takes the burden off your shoulders.
And a quote like this really captures the exact mindset you should be looking for. The goal is simple: ensuring safety and compliance the right way. No shortcuts, no cutting corners. You need a partner whose work and whose documentation will stand up to any scrutiny that comes your way.
So we'll end with this question for you to think about. Don't just ask if your fire escape has been inspected. Ask yourself, has it been certified? Is your documentation actually ready to protect you, your property, and your tenants when it really truly matters? Because when the stakes are this high, an inspection report by itself, well, it's just not enough.